Welcome to the latest episode of the Low Production High Value Show, a show for and about entrepreneurs.
On today's episode, I talked to Baron Manett of Per Se Brand Experience. We talk about the rising demand by consumers for enriching brand experiences and greater connection. Baron Manett, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you? It's good to be here, Andrew. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. To kick things off, I'd like to jump right into things. When it comes, from your perspective, when it comes to content marketing, what's the real difference between creating content and creating a true brand experience?
You're starting out with the easy ones, right? The easy question.
Yeah, we'll ladder our way up.
Well, sure. I think for your listeners and the people I'm talking to in, marketing teams and sales teams, a lot of them have sort of come to the table with different definitions of what content is. So maybe I'll sidestep that question, but I kind of think of that question in terms of dimensions, right? Like I think content is one of the dimensions of, if we try and make a marketing experience or an experience even, like with marketing as one of the goals, then we'll probably have content. Like it'll be an ingredient and an outcome. But I think the greater goal would be a third dimension, which is, that's where the experience comes in. Like you feel something, you sense something, you're left with something. I think content can do a lot of things, but I think it's one tool in the toolbox when it comes to contributing to a marketing experience or a brand experience or things like that. It's an important tool, but I don't think it can do everything.
It's a critical or important element, but not the entire thing. And it's rather timely we're having this discussion because literally yesterday I was having a discussion with someone talking about with the rise of social and the rise of AI, especially the latter, there's this take or rising belief that people will be demanding experiences more than anything else. The human connection, hearkening back to humanity, social interaction. And I'm wondering what your take is on that. And one, do you agree? Two, what's your spin on it or take on it? Like, how do you see it evolving or rolling out?
That seems to be the big question of the day right now. We're all waking up and either AI is going to take our jobs or it needs wisdom to do a better job. I think it's going to be in the middle, right? I think it's a powerful tool. We've been through other powerful tools before, whether it's desktop publishing or the internet or social media. So I don't make light of it. It's amazing and it's powerful and it's going to change a lot of how we're doing things, and it is changing. But I think, again, it's a tool, and I think there's going to be human reactions to how people encounter work, experiences, marketing, executions that are AI enabled. And I think some of them are going to be really great. Some of them are going to cause fear. I think overall, my sense is it's going to cause a breakdown or contribute to more breakdowns in trust. And I think the audience, and I'm speaking across industries in a very wide idea here, but I think we're going to be searching and rewarding our attention with trust. And, that's where AI is going to, I think, hit some limits where human curation, human guidance, and human leadership is probably going to be where brands win with the help of AI versus follow AI, is my sense. So I think trust is going to be a really, really important marker. If you look at the Super Bowl ads, when all those AI ads were running, the trust scores just dropped, right? And so I think everything is going too far to a pendulum one way or another. And right now it was going to be the savior of everything, and then it was going to be our demise. And I think I'm betting on humans here in this discussion here. I think there's a lot of stuff we can do with powerful tools.
Well, personally, I think if you're transparent, so if I produce an AI generated image for the purposes of humor, and part of the humor is the fact that this is fake, like that it's glaringly obvious that it's fake, I think that cuts through. If, to your point, if I'm using it as a guise, then there's risk. But I want to go back to your the trust part.
Yeah, sure.
And the Edelman Trust Barometer that comes out every year has talked about the decline of trust in institutions. And you referenced leaders. And we, in our own work, have been evangelizing, especially over the last year or so, the importance of the visibility of leaders. in a social context. And so because people buy from people, people need that human connection to build rapport and trust. And they can only trust an institution and a brand so far. And I'm just wondering, do you agree, or what's your stance on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, we do trust machines to an extent. And I was thinking about this the other day. 20 years ago, if you told me I was going to click on my phone and a stranger would pick me up in a car and take me somewhere, and it would be great. And it would be how I really consider one of my modes of transportation. I'd be like, well, my parents told me not to do that. So things change in terms of how we trust technology. At the same time, I think we're kind of, we have to be really careful, right? Because you've got two Gen X marketers talking about calm down about AI. So there's a lot of people thinking, what are you talking about, old guy? Like, it's going to save everything. And
Okay,
listen,
boomer.
right. So check my point of view at the door, but I think I still go back to that old adage, irony intended. If all you have is a hammer, then every problem's a nail, right? So AI is going to do a lot of things, but it's not going to do everything. And we're just going to, I think humans are going to get more enabled, and ideas are going to get more enabled, and production's going to get more enabled. But I also think we often only think about, in marketing, AI front end, right? And like, oh, the pictures look weird or it's cringy. And I think it's more about where in the workflow of making creative inputs for business outputs, which really I think is what we do as marketers, right? Whether we do it for super cool products or whether we do it for under the radar utilitarian products, that's a different discussion. But I think the tools we use are changing. That's really exciting. I think the human layer comes in creative, content, strategy, kind of the areas I focus on. Around, again, going back to, if you stay with me on the idea of dimensions, and I still am very involved in postgraduate students and working with them and supporting young people coming out into our industry. But they're amazing at the tools, but the tools come off flat, in my opinion, often. It used to be, again, okay, boomer, like the best student in class at one time had the color laser printer, right? Or the really great fast RAM computer. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't output like that. But now with these tools, we all can look at a basic set of really strong, right? And I sort of refer to that as a two-dimensional layer. But strategy, insight, human art, curation, that takes it to the third dimension of impact, of credibility, of resonance. So I think we're going to be able to do it, but I think AI is going to be underneath. I don't think it's going to be the lead singer. But I think, when I read about really amazing marketers like MasterCard, how are they using AI? Well, let's use AI to review our top 2,000 pieces of content over the last 4 years. What can we reuse? And all of a sudden they save $200,000 in production because they brought a really strong tool to enable their work, and it doesn't always have to be make new things. So I think if we widen the aperture of the discussion, the tools are super exciting. The symphony's never going to sound better, but we just have to be great conductors, and we have to understand that it's human-led, I think. That's where I see trust being delivered.
I like your analogy about the symphony. I mean, I refer to this like, you're the artist, and then this is either the instrument or the paintbrush or whatever you want to call it. It is a tool. I was just saying at the conference I was at last week, saying her name is Jill Rowley. She's a LinkedIn and social selling and angel investor in the US, and she had a phrase, a fool with a tool is still a fool. And so it's really, taking a step back and thinking about where and how can I apply this. And I mean, I am amazed every day about something I've been able to do, or a use case I've heard about with AI. But I've also been, we also should be regularly reminded about its limitations. And there's a guy on TikTok called Husk, and his video went viral, and they showed it to Sam Altman, where he, holding up his phone, he said to ChatGPT, I'm going to run 10 miles. Can you time me? ChatGPT agreed, and then he just literally stepped out of frame, stepped back in, and he said, okay, I'm done. How long did it take me? So he was literally only off camera for like 3 seconds. And ChatGPT responded, so, no, that was 10 minutes. And they showed this to Sam Altman, and he said, it's an LLM. It doesn't understand time just yet. So that's something that hasn't been trained. And so you realize, as good as it is at so many things that we're amazed by, daily, there are still some things where you realize, oh, no, not so not so well applied in that realm.
It will, though. It will be good. It will pick that up. It will decide, be able to put those permutations on it. And I think the different parts of our industry are going to use it in really, really different ways, which I think is going to be super exciting. I think we're going to be shown new ways of using it. I think, in a way, it's kind of like the old art directors were carrying the sketchboards around in those big briefcases. And then we went to desktop publishing, we went to Adobe, we went to, now look at Figma, and we look, online class. I mean, so it's just amazing how it frees up the opportunity for engagement and ideation and things like that, right? So I think the idea of fighting it or controlling it is, I mean, certainly we have to have the guardrails, and there's super intelligent people that are thinking about this from various ways. But I think in this moment, as the what the democratization, if you will, of what it enables, what we're able to do with a smaller group of people, how ideas can get bigger. Those are all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things, right? So I think that is where I see opportunity. And I think it's not just going to be major, giant multinationals that have these tools behind walls. I think students are going to be using it. I think we're going to learn from different applications that I'm not even considering right now, which I find really exciting.
Well, to your point about democratization, Canva just introduced, not Canva, sorry, Claude introduced Claude Design. And everyone's saying, oh, like, you can import stuff from Figma. So, like, does that mean Figma's, the demise of Figma? No. Just like desktop publishing, was it disrupted? Yes. Did it change? Did graphic designers go the way of the dinosaur? No. Things evolved. Canva has 250 million users globally, but there's still, I'll call it, the high-end practitioners that are, true designers trained on the foundation and fundamentals and so on. But the democratization, the layperson getting some, broadened skills, those are, to me, all positives. But I want to go back to something you referenced about students, and this is a conversation we've been having of late. And this idea of AI literacy, there's this, not argument, but this line of thinking that people that have more experience, have the wisdom of experience, the judgment, discerning, and then you add the layer of AI literacy, are quite powerful. Younger people who have less experience, that are new entrants to their career, who are AI literate but don't have that wisdom of experience, some saying they're at a disadvantage. I look at it as having, someone who went and did their MBA. I can plug into the matrix with AI and basically forego the expense of tuition for an MBA and close my gap of learning in rapid succession, or in a much smaller and designed personally to my way of learning, my thinking, how little or how much do I want today versus tomorrow, that kind of thing. And I'm just wondering, with the students that you're working with, as well as people that you're working with in agency life, do you see that same spectrum of AI literacy and the wisdom of experience?
Yes, I think some people, I kind of see it as gradients of excitement or openness.
Okay, that's interesting.
So I think some people are like, oh my gosh, there's these new tools. It's almost like this is the fastest car I'm ever going to drive. It's going to be amazing. Let's test it out. And, I'm going to crash, but it's okay, right? There's a real openness to another set of panels and tools. I think some people are in the middle saying, okay, I have to learn this. Where do I start? I'm afraid, like, what if I don't learn it? Or who's going to train me? Where do I look for guidance? Because you have like these big companies saying, just do it. Like the leaders, like, you better just do it. You better just start using it or else we'll know, right? And then I think you get people making poor decisions. Like that rolls us into governance issues. Like, what do I share? And, what secrets am I giving up? And then I think you have some people who are saying, no, I don't like this. This scares me. And you know what? I'm not going to change the way I'm doing it. Or I'm waiting for someone to train me. And I think those are kind of the three things.
Mm-hmm.
I think students are learning in a number of ways. So yeah, I have a business education, and when I kind of think what we do in marketing is a craft anyway, so I kind of learn more about it after school than I did in school. But I do think
Same.
one of the things I'm doing as the co-chair of Seneca's ad program, their professional association and committee, is, for the last few years, we've been really trying to help the academic folk be that bridge, saying, okay, we need the students coming out with these tools, these basic tools, these patterns, right? And it's going to be more than just what Microsoft is giving you and things like that. And so I think that we need more. We need more of the software to support that at the school level, rather than getting into this discussion. It's going to take jobs, right? So is it going to change jobs? Absolutely, it's going to change jobs. Is it going to take jobs? Some jobs. I think it's going to reorient them. And then, everyone's reacting about how our industry is in the top 10 of how it's going to be disintermediated by it. And yeah, I think a lot of stuff is true around that, but we were probably due for a shakeup, as, Y2K and internet and stuff like that. But at the same time, our business is based on the use of creative ideas to enable business growth. And I don't think that's taken away. I think it's been enabled. So I think it's how clients think about the work they need, how partners like me and you help those clients, and how we help teach new people to come into our industry and add value. I think those are all shifting right now in an exciting way.
But I see more and more people being autonomous or empowered and selling their time as independence, rather than, I'll go work for you for 40 or 44 hours a week or 35 or whatever it is. No, I'm actually going to have 3 or 4 clients that I give, 10 hours a week or 7.5, like whatever. And I don't want to say cobble, but they basically build their own career because they now can be a team of 3 or 4 people as an individual. And that's potentially the value proposition to their client, no longer an employer, but their client. And as well, on the flip side, the organization that hires them is rationalizing, for this percentage of spend, I get the following capability delivered by, a human, but an enhanced human because of, their enhanced capabilities. Anyway, that's, I don't know if you call that nirvana, but anyway, that's
Well,
my current speculation. But
yeah, I think that's fair. I think if you take a step back, again, we're in this marketing industry that's quite big, right? And the kind of marketing that we do, whether it's for the coffee shop on the corner or whether it's for a Fortune 100 brand, those are very different skill sets and team sets and talent sets. So I think the good thing is, and the firm that I run, per se, Brand Experience, we are a gigantic firm of 8. Right? So we're never going to be bigger than 10 ever. We're in our 10th year, and we look at it as if we're a band, right? And we play our music, and we have our audience of clients and the work we do, and then based on the brief, we might bring in some guest musicians that'll jam with us. And I think your description is really, I think, apropos, because a colleague of mine who runs a small shop, her name is Joanna Track at Good Eggs & Co., and I'll send you the links for the notes. She has a 3-person shop, and she posted on LinkedIn this week a really interesting cost if you were going to build an in-house marketing department as a company, right? And just rough back of the envelope math, she got to $600,000 in salary, benefits, and tech stack pretty quickly. So if you're going to run a $600,000 headcount team, then your marketing spend exponentially is probably going to be in the 7 figures, which means your sales funnel is probably going to be in the tens of 7 figures, right? So if you first math it, there's a marketing team for that, right? And her point is, okay, if you're going to be under that 600,000, you should do fractional, and you should work with small partners, and you'll get more value, and you'll get better thinking. On the talent side, for people like you and me and our teams, okay, what kind of work do we want to work on? I personally want to work on bigger, more complex work, which usually means I'm in the Fortune 200, which usually means we work with marketing teams that have budgets over 5 to 10 million. And the teams I work with want to work on that work as well. So they have a different skill set, they have a different background, they've gone to some sort of school or training, they've worked on other stuff like a craft, and they've worked their way into being in those rooms. It's not that one group is more talented or others, just the teams, the ways of working are different, B2B, B2C versus small business Main Street. And I think the good news is these software tools, just like Meta has done, love them or not love them, they've democratized the opportunity to be creative, tell your story, get some reach, and see if people will react to what you're selling or servicing. So I think there's a marketer for a role. It just depends. The glut is, when everybody wants to work on Nike or they want to work on Liquid Death or things like that.
And not everybody can.
Or will. Right? Or will. I mean, the great thing about our industry is it's often a meritocracy based on the most talented people get to work on the most interesting things at times. And that depends personally what fuels you and what you want to work on.
Well, I mean, we found, my time at the bank, I worked with a lot of external agencies, and they were, a couple of them were AOR. And every 3 years they had to rebid for the business and justify their existence and justify the relationship. And that was a great learning for me. My focus has been we do one thing well. We're not seen as a solopreneur, freelancer, and we're not seen as an AOR that has to rebid. We fly below the radar. We have a price point that is typically below the procurement threshold, and that's the niche. And I might be leaving some money on the table. That might be other people might disagree. It's working. Knock wood.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. A busy marketer is a great thing. A working marketer, right? You're only as good as your last project. I always was trained by my bosses that AOR is a fallacy, right? If you win AOR, agency of record for people listening who maybe don't understand that term, which is basically you're guaranteed to work on work for a longer term until the client calls you into review. Well, really, your next call is you're in review, you're fired, right? So I always worked on teams where we were project based and we were as good as our last job and we worked to earn it and then we earn more work, right? And if you keep earning more work, isn't it kind of the same thing with more trust? I think it's more of a how you approach working with clients and agencies and partners. Like, it's more of a trust sale anyway. And how do you build into that trust? People, it's hard to sell ideas if you don't have trust. So that's a cornerstone of doing good work.
Well, and I wanted to go back to the idea of trust. And, with the rise of AI and so on, where people are now skeptics or they're suspicious, how does a brand convey their customer centricity
Right.
in this new era, and not only establish the trust but maintain it?
It's a great question. I think we're going to be playing around with what that means, but I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to follow brands that we trust right now. Like, think of who you bought something from and who do you trust them and why do we trust them, right? Because I think it's going to be more human in the trust category. I think it's going to be almost categories in a way, right? Like tourism, heavy trust, right? Banking and insurance, still incredibly heavy trust. Wealth management, so trust needed, right? And I think all these industries are bringing AI in to enable more human connection time. And, I'll give you an example. I'm working with a global insurance company right now. They're bringing AI experiments in, which have been very successful, but it's all sort of back end. How do we save front-facing people time on admin so that they can deal with the humanity of dealing with clients and advising them and giving them more face time and being more human? And tech make you more human. So it certainly has the potential, and it's a great goal. Again, I think AI for AI's sake, why are we doing that? It's got to be a means to some end. So again, forget AI, tech to be more human. We talk mobile
in broader terms,
right?
Yeah, the tech enablement is probably a better aggregate of it. And to your point, they're not using AI for the customer interaction. They're using AI to enable a more enriched interaction because the client-facing producers have delegated or they've offloaded some of the admin that is a distraction or occupies more time than potentially necessary, so they can give their time and energy to the client.
Well, we dealt with these before, right? In mobile, right? When mobile came in and everybody was freaking out about the phone. And, I was really fortunate to be working with the TD team for a number of years around mobile, content, social. And a question that our team, I was able to run a great team called Ariad back in the day where we focused on content first and financial. And what is the role of the phone in the banking relationship? Like, what is the role of the tech? And it sounds like a silly, simple question, but it wasn't, right? So I'll give you an example where part of the thinking was the role of the phone is to help you be calm when you're nervous, right? Like, and when are you nervous about money? Well, you're commuting. You're thinking you're on your way to work. Oh my, boom, the mobile can help reassure you. Quick check on your phone, a quick text alert around cyber fraud. It's a reassurance tool. Once we started unlocking roles of tech, then you can make human ideas come to life on top of it, right? Rather than just thinking, look, an app, two-dimensional. The three-dimensional is what the app makes you feel. Safe, quick check, reassured, another example of service, another example of comfort, things like that, right? So the means to an end is really where I think that's where the magic of ideas build off tech rather than just stopping.
We'll be back in a moment. And now, a word from our sponsor. Social media has become an imperative for almost every business. Discover how to successfully implement an effective social media strategy that is supported and integrated throughout every part of your organization with this essential book from our host, Andrew Jenkins, Social Media Marketing for Business, Scaling an Integrated Social Media Strategy Across Your Organization, is now available from Amazon or KoganPage.com. Now, back to the show.
Well, to drill down on that a bit, I saw a talk from, do you know Rory Sutherland?
Of course.
Yeah, so he was talking about, and he was using AI, but I think your mobile example it fits the same situation. It's tech. It becomes a commodity to every bank has a mobile app. Every bank has the access to a mobile platform to be a conduit to their end customer. Okay, if that's the given, or AI, every major financial institution and every person has access to AI now, essentially, every service provider. What are you going to do now that the playing field is level for AI or mobile platforms and so on? What are you doing as a differentiator for that consumer reach to deliver value, to build trust? And I'm just wondering if you had to give a recommendation to someone for closing that gap of value delivery and trust building, and I'll call it platform or AI agnostic, what would you suggest?
I think if you take it back to humans and trust, it's going to be under promise and over deliver, right? I understand how organizations need to sing from the rooftops and that they're innovating and they're doing this, and you can open a bank account on your smartwatch while standing on your head. Well, it's ridiculous, right? But
But
what
just
do we
because you can
want?
doesn't mean you should.
Right, but again, what do we want? We want things to work. If we get in trouble, we want to be able to talk to a human. We want to feel cared for. We want to feel important. We want to feel safe. I mean, it comes back to the outcomes. A lot of brands say they're customer centric, right? And then, or they're audience first or client first or whatever it is, right? But go to their website, try and do something, right? Try and find a phone number. Try and find an address. And again, this isn't me being older and saying, Grandpa Simpson. Literally, a brand is a promise. If we take that definition, this is how we look at it on our per se team. A brand is a promise. And we use this at Ariad too. Like, this isn't new, but a brand is a promise. For the last 10 years, we think its identity is symbolized often by a logo. Could be a tagline. But really what the brand is it's the sum of all the interactions that you have in that organization. Pre, during, post, right? Customer service, phone call, going into a store, warranty renewal. So it's hard. All that loyalty is incredibly hard, right? Because there's so many things you don't control. It's a team sport. But if the brand is a promise, then our job is to either communicate the promise, reinforce the promise, or highlight that promise. Right? And how do we bring that to life? There's different channels to do it. There's different ways to do it. Again, orchestra's never been bigger.
If I had an experience, this is not a flex, but I had the opportunity, sort of under the umbrella of social influence, to the agency for the car brand brought me a car for a weekend. It was a Cadillac. High touch. They walked me through the car. Like, everything was well done from a process to help me get the most out of my experience in the car for the weekend. Fast forward a few weeks, I win a similar opportunity with a competing brand, Lincoln. I had to go to the dealership, leave my car, and they left my car on the front like it was in the used car lot. And then when I brought the car back, it was if I was dropping off a rental. Just leave the key there. And if you recall Scott Monty, he was the social lead for Ford at the time. I messaged him and I shared a blog I wrote about the experience. I said, this is not your fault, but it just speaks to the breakdown in brand promise. Lincoln or Cadillac are promising X, and then when it comes to the experience at the dealership, and I had sold cars in my life as well, if there's a disconnect between the brand promise and the execution, people remember that. And it's very hard to repair. And now, just make it a microcosm, that I forget what website it was, but I sent an email and I got an AI reply. And basically the answer, I asked a question which you thought the AI would probably know how to respond to, and I just got sort of a generic answer. So what was the point of the AI only to give me nothing in return? You're better off not having it than only to perpetuate the nothingness.
Yeah, I think the silos are thinking in silos, and often that holistic experience is not what people are thinking through. Okay, what are the 9 steps it takes to book a hotel room and leave and have a great experience and tell 5 other people, right? There's big wins there. There's lots of risks. So many things can go wrong, but even how you handle that. So, customer experience design, the tag team for brand, there's all kinds of stuff to unpack there. But yeah, fully agree. I mean, if you're going to go out to people and you're going to introduce the brand, then how do you think through that process of setup, delivery, return? I mean, those are all, especially in the car business. So I take your example. That's a fascinating way of looking at 2 brands and how they approach promotion.
One was fantastic execution. The other was like, really? I won the Lincoln test drive because I went to a pop-up test drive. That experience was great. But then I won a 48-hour test drive. And that second experience was less than stellar.
Right.
Leads me to just picking up on experience. You started per se a decade ago. Was there a gap, or was there a kind of idea that you wanted to expand on or deliver on that you weren't able to previously? Or what was the catalyst, or what was the reasoning behind launching per se?
I think it was more of the natural evolution of where I had seen what the clients were looking for and the kind of work, how my work was evolving, right? So if we take a step back, so I was client side first, and I worked at record companies. I started in concert production. So I got, now we'd call that experiential. That's understanding moving parts live. And then I went and worked for Canada's largest electronics retailer, Future Shop, which is now Best Buy, and where I ran their entertainment marketing group. So that was music, home video, and a nascent category that nobody cared about called video games. So I've just aged myself too.
Video games, they're not going to grow into anything.
And that's what the adults in the room said, and I was, fresh out of school, and let the kid do it. And I was like, great, happy to do it. So it was a great part
No
of
one
it.
will ever need more than 256K.
Right, exactly. And it turns out, I stood up in one meeting and I said, in 5 years, video games will be bigger than both movies and music. And they're like, nah, sit down. Luckily, my risky prediction was correct, and that's where the attention was going. Um, so I did a lot of marketing at Future Shop. So that's where I really learned TV commercials and flyers and direct, and we built the first website and all that. So it was a great training ground. But what I saw was that you have to keep spending. You have to every year you got to buy more GRPs or more banner ads or kill more trees for flyers, things like that. That didn't really seem well thought out to me. So then I went and I got to run a shop called Seagull, where we were really focused on experience. At the time, it was called events. They wouldn't even, events and promotions, but now we call it brand experience. And we worked with amazing brands, Unilever, where we launched the Axe brand, and we renewed the Degree brand, and we helped pump a whole bunch of life back into Hellmann's and Knorr and those awesome brands that just got sold to McCormick. We launched PlayStation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we also launched Virgin Mobile. We launched Facebook back in the day. So risky, culturally moving work. So being able to have the basics of the fundamentals and then being able to do some of the more culturally relevant work, what I saw coming next was content. To Ariad, and that was a wonderful way to really drive into content, especially enterprise content, banking, insurance, healthcare. But then people just got in the habit of making all kinds of content, right? Everyone's making it. So now, how do you break through? How do you bring relevance? So I believed as Ariad grew, and so many people, it's kind of funny now, but back in the early to mid 2000s, I was making presentations about why content's important, like why you should consider making it. So now, 20 years later, it's like, oh, it makes so much of it. I believe the future was a fusion of deeper planning, deeper content, and then adding that experience layer back on as a triangle. I was really motivated. We sold Ariad to a firm in the US, and I really wanted to get back to a smaller firm that I can work with senior clients deeper. And that's what we've been doing for the last 10 years.
Do you see content then I'll call it, in very simplistic terms, I'll call it signups for the experience, and then the experience itself creates content as social proof of the kind of experience that was delivered, the kind of joy or pleasantries that people had. It's not so much that the experience itself is content, if that makes sense. Like there's content that was the build-up and there was content as an outcome.
I think up until COVID, you absolutely are correct. I think COVID kind of shifted a lot of events or programs that we were producing that we had to think of them as parallel experiences, if you will.
Or streams?
Because COVID, we had to take events and bring them into digital experiences. And then as COVID came out, some audiences really didn't like digital experiences. They wanted to go back to live. And some, whether it's geographic or time or for whatever other reason, they liked having the option. Developing that new muscle of thinking about, okay, we could do this content live, we could do it online. What if it allows us to grow our audience bigger, to tour it differently, but at the same time, we now think of content as pre, during, and post, and we think about it through the whole line, right? We think about it through the whole line of invitation, to thank you, to follow up. So I kind of think of it more as in a type of journalism format now, so that you're going to experience pre-content, day of event, you're going to experience all kinds of things there, not there, and then that goes into sort of a machine of post-content that allows you to really wring out the value of having a live event, which differentiates your brand, your team, your project, whatever that reason for that live event is, whether it's B2B or B2C.
Well, and using the COVID example, because something I've talked about with others is this idea that, during COVID, we watched talk shows that were on Zoom.
Yes.
So this idea of like a production value dropped, but we were forgiving that for the access. And I taught at the University of Toronto. I used to teach in class. Even pre-COVID, there's a shift to online. Now it's only online. They can get more people from across different geographies and so on. So you're already highlighted now we have to be hybrid because there's people that aren't going to go back to in person when there's a digital option. But I'm wondering about that production level, that people forgive production value for social content, and actually overly produced content isn't necessarily a guarantee of engagement. And I'm wondering what your stance is.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting that, like, when I started the ensemble series with my partners back in 2016, we were worried about looking super polished. We wanted to look like one of those big super tours. You want to look like the Oprah show. And then what the audience told us is they don't care, right? They care about the content and they care that it feels like what we're building. And I think if you give your audience value, that's really the harder conversation. I think they're going to forgive a lot, right? And then I think going back to our conversations right now about trust and human, in a weird way, I think we are drawn to the imperfect right now. We have trust in the fact that you and I are not perfectly lit, I'm hoping right now. I'm hoping you can make me look better. But the only reason people are going to listen to us and your show is if we're adding some sort of value. It's not because it's Brad Pitt and Brad Pitt here, right? So the fact is,
Dueling pits.
right. The fact is, hopefully people like our conversation. They're going to be able to learn from it. And, the fact that we have the tools now that you can do this recording, you can talk to a whole bunch of different perspectives. It's not super expensive. It's not super hard to do anymore. And you can democratize people who get access and other people to listen. So I think the audience rewards that rather than, oh, why is Baron wearing glasses? Yeah, we're not perfect. And, and then if they don't like it, the good thing is there's 9 million hours of other things to watch, right? But I think, somebody asked me the other day, what am I watching on TV right now? They're an older person, and my favorite channel is YouTube. And I think that's a great example where I watch a ton of stuff. Sometimes I really want high production value, but sometimes I don't care. If it's the topic, I don't care.
I mean, I'm not comparing this show, which is called the Low Production High Value Show. So it is walking the walk when it comes to low production.
Does what it says what it does.
And delivering value. But when you look at like the Pivot podcast or whatever, I'm not comparing myself to that, but they raised an interesting point recently. They talked about how I think collectively the Pivot podcast with Scott Galloway and Kara Swisher has a staff of 20 and makes more money. My show is not about making money. It's selfish for me. I like to talk to entrepreneurs and other digital marketers. So this is just a means for me to do what I like. Oh. And if other people enjoy the journey, so be it. But back to Pivot for a second. They make more money than CNN for some of the CNN shows, more specifically, I should say. And some of those CNN shows take a staff of 100 or more. And I'm not belittling CNN, but it's just an example of the shift in, like you said, people want more immediacy. They want more authenticity. They trust the humanity. And some of that comes through less polished, like some imperfections around the edge. And so that's why I think some of the reasons for the rise of the podcast. I can be a YouTuber now with my phone. I mean, I have a degree in film production. I produced a documentary that was in the Toronto Film Festival, and it went to different festivals around the world, and we sold it to Channel 4 in England, and I could get more views with a YouTube video than all of the audience that saw my film 20-some years ago.
That's right.
That's the reality.
Yeah.
And so the democratization, the empowerment of the individual to produce content and build an audience is just oftentimes mind-blowing or staggering to me.
Absolutely. I think, again, the gates are open. There's lots of great opportunity for creativity. The tools are great. I think when you work with big companies, whether you're working for small companies or startups, and you're going to have different rules of engagement. But it's never been more exciting to be a storyteller and to help, find your voice and to play around with stuff. It's exciting.
But how does that translate from your perspective for playing for the long game? Oftentimes brands fall into a trap of campaign oriented. It's like when I went into the bank, they would run a campaign on Meta and then let the community die. Run a campaign, let it die. Run a campaign. And they were doing nothing in between the campaigns. And so I'm wondering, when you talk about experience, those are moments, or there might be an experiential event, but playing for the long run, how do you maintain the relationship with that community between experiences? Or maybe it's a smaller group of experiences throughout, but just playing the long game from an experiential point of view.
I think it's clarity of brand. I think whether you're a one-person business and you're running the local pottery shop on the Danforth, my friend has a store there, and what's her focus? Her focus is on Her audience is under 30 looking for stress relief and some fun. And that's what she builds in there. There's all kinds of ways that she understands her community and how they're going to use her business. And, she understands the times they like to come, what they want on it, and she's designed her whole business around that. Her content is all around showing how if you go to her shop, then you're going to have this great experience. Go take that to, one of our clients, RBC, one of the biggest advertiser in Canada. They have a tremendous clarity of their brand. And in terms of how that brand needs to show up with consistency, but also be relevant, whether you're talking about credit cards or the Olympics or wealth management or insurance. Tremendously large teams that think about these things. But the similarities are around, we decide on a focus, and then the marketing ideas and opportunities are all measured against the lens of, does it allow us to deliver on that focus? And if it does, it's worth your time. And if it doesn't, you should say no. And most people try and either do too many things or try and fill up every channel or think they have to do too many things when really is the audience, are they even noticing, right? My wonderful and genius client at Unilever, Sharon McLeod, used to always ask the same question at the end of every presentation. Will anyone care and will anyone share? And if we can't answer those two questions, no matter the size of the business, we haven't done the job.
Well, you reminded me of my time at RBC and all the different brand managers for each pillar. And I remember being in a meeting with the brand manager for Olympic. And it was one of the largest meetings I'd ever been in. The number of agencies that were in the room, myself and my colleague from representing the social part of it, PR, experiential, like online, there were so many moving parts, and she was running the whole show. It was thoroughly impressive. But it still goes back to what you're describing of they as an entity wanting to have a brand promise delivered through experience. So, there was, for the Olympic campaign, they were going to run London cabs across the country, doing video captures of letting their customers cheer on Olympic competitors. And that was just one example, but there was Olympic, there was arts, there was TIFF, there was community hockey, and there was green. They had these specific brand pillars, and there was a frame of thought around experience for each of those pillars, but it laddered up to the overarching brand promise.
That's right.
And it was very cool to be a part of it and see something like that at scale.
Yeah, it's when you get to work on those bigger teams, you get to see how things move in a different environment. It's the type of opportunities you get to work at that level are phenomenal. I feel very fortunate to be part of it.
Great learning experience. Any final thoughts on, for smaller organizations, smaller teams? I mean, we just talked about one of the largest advertisers and largest organizations in Canada, but that same thinking, but, how can a small, scrappy team execute on brand experience?
Yeah, it's funny. The exact same process that we work with a team at RBC or a big giant enterprise team is exactly the same type of thought process we would bring to a small business, right? And that we do. We actually just redid a website for a one-person consultant, and so we didn't invent it. We work on a very simple process, and the process was invented by Josh Burnoff and Charlene Lee out of Forrester Research years ago. It's called POST, right? And the P stands for who are the people, who are our audience, right? O is what are our objectives? Why are we doing whatever we're going to do? Why are we going to do a postcard mailing or have a promotion or have a sale? Why are we doing it, right? The S is the strategy. And that thought there is, how do we want the relationship to change with our customers after we do X, whatever this is we're going to do. We don't know what it is yet. And then T is the final stage. It's the tactic. That's what we're going to do. And because we're going to do this, we're going to give everybody coupons, or we're going to let everyone eat free on Fridays, or kids are eat free, or you know what, we're going to have a loyalty program and close the store for a special party. Whatever it is, we're going to do this, and that's going to resonate back to our people, our audience, right? And they're going to care about it, and it's going to support our objectives that we want to grow our business, grow sales, be more relevant in the community. POST, P-O-S-T. So most people get it wrong, and small businesses go to the T first. Hey, I'm going to run an ad, right? And why am I running an ad? I want to get more sales. The ad's not working, I don't know where the ad ran. I don't know who saw it, right? So again, if we flip that and we start with the people who care, and usually small business, it's your current customers. You probably don't have to pay that much. And if you ask them, they'll probably tell you everything for free. Right? So, which is the exact same thing we tell bigger companies. Hey, can we talk to the customers? Hey, can we listen to the call center? Hey, can we go online and listen to what people say on Reddit? Of course we can. So, listen to what people are saying, and if you don't know, ask them, and then reward them, and then follow up with what they said and say thank you. Sales will go up.
It's just funny. It seems to a certain degree so logical. We're human beings. We can fall into I don't know whether driven by anxiousness. We jump to the doing versus before we do anything, let's make sure we're doing the right thing.
No one has enough time in the day. We're all tired. So if we're going to do it, how many things are you really going to do? This is a small business question, big team question, middle team question. How many things are we really going to be able to do this year? And what are those things that are going to make it worthwhile that we got off the couch to do them, right? And if we can align on 3 or 4 of those things, maybe 1 a quarter, and you do it to the best of your ability, you're going to drive results, right? And you're going to maximize your time and your investment. If you try and do too many things, what's that old saying? If you keep adding colors, eventually everything turns brown.
We don't want that.
No. But the great thing is for small business listening, you have something nobody else can take from you, which is you have a small business story and you have a reason why you created this business. That is the most powerful thing in any business, is the origin story. For middle-sized businesses, you are unique and you are people-led. For large size, you are safety and scale. So there are ways and relevance across the businesses. It's what's important to the audience. It's an audience-first way of marketing now. How our audience sees us is how we need to understand that narrative.
That's a great place to leave it. Thank you. I really appreciate you making time to share your experiences and your insights. Thank you very much.
Andrew, this is a great conversation. Thanks for having me, and happy to share it. And I always love how when I met you early in my career, your focus on the human audience first is, I think, what helped teams get better results. And I think whoever's listening to the podcast, if you focus on people, there's a lot of other things we can do, tech and tools, but if you focus on the people, you'll never go wrong.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Low Production High Value Show. Be sure to give us a rating and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Don't forget to check out Volterra at volterradigital.com to learn more about how they can support your social media marketing.